Something blue. What does that decide?
Yeah. Okay, afternoon everyone. We are just waiting on one Sandra coming. We're not sure if she's coming along, but we're just going to get started and hopefully she'll be able to join us for the underway. So welcome to this meeting of the Inverclyde Integration Joint Board Audit Committee. This meeting has been held remotely and will be filmed and recorded for subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Integration Joint Board is a joint data controller with Inverclyde Council and NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. This meeting will be broadcast and recorded to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during this remote meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council published policies available through the Council website. Members of the Integration Joint Board are reminded that they should follow the IJB's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are listened to all which may include members of the public who are also received in this to the meeting. Okay, so that's for a bit over. Okay, so we've got apologies, substitutions and declaration of interest.
No apologies, staff has been intimated. Chairman moves a roll call. We ask for declarations of interest. And colleague members, please indicate if they are present at the meeting and in person remotely. Councillor Quinn. Councillor Reynolds. Dr. Metcalfe. Present. Aaron Sumner. Kirsty Reichel.
Remotely.
Stephen McCarthy.
I'm present online. Apologies, I can't seem to get my camera on for some reason. I'm working on it at the moment.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Okay. Okay, so that's us on to agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting of the IJB Audit Committee of 24th of March 2025. Is everyone getting comments, errors, submissions? Okay, to accept them. Okay, and that leads us on to agenda item 3, which is the IJB Audit Committee ruling and report. Again, any comments?
For yourself, it's just to say we're going to add on to this the actual dates in September and March after the event here, because that's now we're through council, so we can do that.
Okay, so agenda item 4 is the internal audit progress report from the 1st of March to the 1st of May 2025. Andy.
Thanks, Chair. So this is just the regular report to Audit Committee on progress against the 24-25 internal audit plan. There were 2 reviews agreed for 24-25. The audit of budgetary control arrangements is now complete and was reported to the March Audit Committee. There's an outstanding piece of advisory work in relation to the updated SIPRA guidance for audit committees, and the development session requires to be arranged at some point in 2025 for the audit committee members to consider the guidance and identify any areas for improvement. In relation to internal audit action plans, there was 1 action that was due for completion by the 31st of May. That's been reported as completed by management, and the current status report is attached to Appendix 1. Relevant officers are in attendance today if there are any questions. Paragraphs 3.8 and 3.9 set out any work undertaken by either the Council, internal auditors, or the NHS GG&C internal auditors, which may be relevant to the Partnership Board. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Andy. Is there any questions for Andy? Okay, great, we've got everything. Okay, so the recommendations recommend that the IJB Audit Committee members need to note the progress made by the internal audit from 1st of March to the 21st of May 2025. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that leads us on to item 5, which is the status of external audit action plans as at the 21st of May 2025.
Thanks through yourself, Chair. So this again is just a regular report in terms of management progress against the external audit actions that have been agreed as part of the annual reports from external audit. There were no actions due for completion by the 31st of May, and there are 3 current external audit actions being progressed by officers. The current status report is attached to Appendix 1, and relevant officers are in attendance today if there are any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any questions on the external audit actions? Good. Okay, so it's recommended that Inverclyde IJB members will report progress to date in relation to the implementation of external audit actions. We're doing good, aren't we? Doing good. Really got a cup of tea between the 2 meetings. Okay, so agenda item 6, which is the internal audit annual report and the policy report from 2025. Andy,
Through yourself, Chair. So this report sets out the annual internal audit opinion in relation to the adequacy and effectiveness of the IJB's governance, risk management and control procedures for 24-25. The annual opinion takes cognizance of the audit work that's been carried out by either the IJB audit team or the internal auditors from the Council, and also NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. The 24-25 annual report from the NHS auditors has not yet been received, but information has been provided that there were no significant issues identified, and I'm therefore comfortable to provide the overall audit opinion that reasonable assurance can be placed upon the adequacy and effectiveness of the IJB system of governance, risk management and internal control for the year to the 31st of March 2025. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Is there any questions from anyone on this report?
Thank you, Andy. I was just going to ask 3.7, the table of performance measures, obviously almost everything is on the reports, but it's sorry, pick out the one that's not, but I was just interested in the audit plan delivery, and obviously one of the audits wasn't completed, just explain that.
Thank you yourself, Chair. So that's in relation to the SIPFA guidance. We just haven't been able to set up a development session where I'll facilitate the session and take audit committee members through the new guidance. It's just unfortunate there's only 2 audit reviews, so the fact that one has not been completed, does make it a 50% completion rate. But I'm hopeful that there'll be a development session and then, within the next 6 months, and we'll get that particular piece of work completed, and any improvement action we can monitor through audit committee, through the regular progress updates from internal audit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Any questions online? Okay, so it's recommended that the audit committee note the content of the internal audit annual report and issue the statement for 2025. Okay, with that. So that leads us on to agenda item 7, which is the HSCP updated risk management policy and strategy.
Through yourself, Chair. This is the English paper is an update on an existing risk management policy and strategy. The general spirit of the policy remains the same, but the risk management process has been updated since it was last brought forward. The Audit Committee should note that further work is planned in the coming months to develop this policy and strategy further, especially in the areas of risk appetite. A further development session will take place with members of both the Audit Committee and the IJB to develop the risk appetite and, more importantly, the risk appetite statements over the coming months. The IJB Audit Committee are asked to approve the updated policy and strategy and note the future work which is to be done in this area.
Is there any questions, comments for
No comment, but this is great, thank you. And I look forward to the work on the risk appetite that you set up for me. That'd be really awesome.
Yeah, we're going to be busy for our development session. Just see things to discuss. Can it be? We get through the summer, so we can get that in the diary. Great, anyone online got any comments? Okay, so the Audit Committee are asked to approve the updated state SNP risk management policy and strategy and note the requirement for officers to work on the IJB with the IJB in 25-26 to develop the strategy further. Okay, so agenda item 8. Our external audit and audit plan 2024, and at this point I want to welcome KPMG. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'll get Craig to introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much to yourself, Chair. My plan is here, I'm not going to steal Michael's thunder on this one. This is a requirement that every year we bring forward the external audit plan, and at this point I'm going to hand over to Michael. If you can talk us through that, please.
Thank you. So I will continue in role as Audit Engagement Partner, ultimately responsible for issuing KPMG's opinion on the financial statements of the IJB for the year ended March 25. This is our draft audit strategy. Draft, as at this point in time, we continue to undertake planning and risk assessment procedures. That's normal for all of our audits, but until we've completed that, there may be changes to our planned approach. That said, I expect it to be largely as presented today. There are 2 key parts I would highlight to members. First is our materiality. That's the number which we consider would affect users of the financial statements and which drives the level of testing and various aspects of our approach. I've set that on a consistent basis with the prior year at 2% of total expenditure. That's around £5 million. and we design our procedures to detect errors or misstatements at a level below that of 3.75 million. Now, we will report any misstatements, corrected or uncorrected, back to this committee at the end of the audit. Where they are below a de minimis of 250,000, then we may not report them. However, if they are material by nature, for example, relating to a significant disclosure or potentially remuneration, something like that, then I would still expect to include it in our report. I also set out in this what I consider to be the significant and other risks as I plan the audit. There are two significant risks that are presumed to exist in every audit by audit standards. The first is that income and expenditure may be manipulated and fraudulently recognised. That's the timing of when it's recognised, usually in order to present a particular position to users of the accounts. Because of the nature of the income and expenditure of the board, I don't consider that to be a risk, and so I rebut it. And the second presumed risk is also a presumed fraud risk, that management is in a unique position to be able to override controls and manipulate the financial statements. I accept that as a risk in every audit that I undertake, and we design procedures to respond to it. The other risk that we will focus on during the audit, though not a significant risk, is ensuring the completeness and accuracy of expenditure that is recorded. And the primary way in which we respond to that is by considering the returns and confirmations that the IJB receives from the Council and the Health Board. There's a number of mandatory confirmations within our strategy, including our independence and our timetable, as well as our fees, but there's nothing else that I would highlight at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I thought it was just a point along. Yeah, so any questions from Michael? Anyone?
Okay. Michael, hi. It's Kate Ross, Chief Officer. It's just a point of accuracy in terms of your wider scope and best value, and it's page 15 on your draft report. It kind of, and that's the section that looks at use of resources to improve outcomes.
Yeah.
Question of that we noted that a new outcomes framework aligned to the new strategic plan needs to be developed. Can I just say that was developed, so that it wasn't needing to be developed, it's already being developed?
Yeah, I think I appreciate your point. Our reference there is to the prior year audit, so that would have been something that we reflected in last year's, and we will update in due course for our conclusions.
Is there any other questions online? Okay, so IJB Audit Committee are asked to move to the annual audit plan for 24-25. Okay, so that was us. Yeah, so thanks everyone, especially you, Michael, for coming along this afternoon, and I'll see everyone at 2 o'clock for the next installment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.